So, today we're going to be taking a look at what if there was another American Civil War. So, the US Civil War was from 1860 to 1865 and consisted mostly of eastern states over here. Now, of course, the two opposing sides were the South and the North. The South were fighting to break away from the Union and form the Confederate States of America, and the North was fighting to preserve it, and they were led by Abraham Lincoln. So we're going to be looking at what if it happened today, as these states now have more people, better technology, and of course, there's more states. So in this video, I'm not going to be including Alaska or Hawaii, just the continental 48 states. And one final thing, I just want to say that no side is good or bad. I am going to be using the colors red and blue, but the red team isn't bad and the blue team isn't bad. It's just what if it happened today. There's nothing as if the South won, then that means they have slavery or anything. There's nothing that. It's just purely what if it happened today, and nothing bad is going to happen. All right. So first, we're going to have to, of course, form the teams, and they're going to be the obvious ones for the South. There's going to be the ones that were always there. All right, so here we have the original states that were on the North and the South. So by looks, it's kind of even about the amount of states. Oh wait, there's also, sorry, I forgot California. California was like the 33rd state and it was all the way over there. But so this is about the teams. So now we've got all these other new states here out west, and so we're going to be determining, of course, whether they're going to be south or north. So let's start off with the easy ones, of course. So these here are going to be north. And then these states down here are going to, of course, be southern. And so now we come to these three states that are in the middle. I feel like the North kind of has a bit more states. We feel like we should give them these three here. And I think that's pretty fair. So, of course, let's see if you're from the United States. Let's see if your state is able to win the Civil War if it were to happen once again. All right, so taking a look at this, next, I believe we should determine where the capitals are because that's very important in any war. So first, let's determine when it's going to be for the North. So of course, the North I would say would be somewhere over here in the East. Now, of course, it could be in Washington D.C. That's like around right there, but that's a little too close to the enemy, as we learned from the real Civil War that happened. So I think they're going to want to move it to like somewhere in New York, like about New York City. I think that's New York City. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. As for this Team South, they had theirs in Richmond, but again, that's pretty close to the north, so they're going to probably want to move it down here. So I'm going to think that they're going to want to go ahead and put it maybe in Atlanta, Georgia. All right, so now is when we are going to be getting to the fun part of the war. All right, so first thing is, um, the middle states, in of course the middle, they don't have that much of a population, so it might not be that key to get them. But for the South, they're gonna decide that, much like the North did in the real Civil War, they're gonna want to cut the North in half by taking all these states up here. So that's what they're gonna do, and they're going to slowly start their attack from Oklahoma and from Utah. So, seeing this, the North is going to go for a different strategy and instead is going to try to go for a blitz attack and knock out the South's most powerful states, and are starting with an invasion of Virginia. So by now it's the beginning of the war, so each state is still collecting its troops. So the front lines, for now, they might seem like they've moved a lot, but they might move back a little as states are able to bring out their troops. So, using their states to the full advantage, the North is also going to decide to pile a bunch of troops into Missouri and use it to attack Tennessee and Arkansas. And so from that, they do just that, as they're able to get into each state respectively and take a good portion from each of them. Over here, the Oklahomas and Texan troops are going to continue attacking and are slowly going to be able to wipe out this state. So Kansas is being slowly taken over as they're losing quite a bit of land. And from here, they're going to go straight up into Nebraska. So these states don't have that much of defense as they don't have a lot of people, and so they are going to be falling a little bit fast. Over here, we see California's, Oregon's, and Washington troops attempting to take some Nevadan land as they slowly go down straight and connect over here. And they're going to want to, of course, try to push them far away from California's capital, Sacramento. They also send a division down here to make a front line at the tip of Nebraska. So by now, each of the sides are taking quite a bit of land, and as for plans, it looks like the South is executing theirs best as they are getting even more land from the states, as Wyoming is almost completely knocked out. So the North is going to see that the South may execute their plan of splitting them in half. So now it comes to a very important choice. Do they go on defense or pull off such a great offense that hopefully the South retreats? And so they're going to go ahead with the latter, and they're gonna from Missouri. They're gonna take all the troops and punch them out, Battle of the Bulge style from World War II, and they're just gonna go straight down to hopefully knock out the core state of Mississippi. So of course they weren't too prepared for this, and so for now it does seem like they're doing good, but it wasn't such a good idea, as now the South is able to send a troop to flank them from behind and cut off their supply train, causing a huge encirclement as they weren't that stabilized. And so all these northern troops are going to be caught, and that will end up being a huge blow to the North. And because of this huge blow, they are going to lose their front line in Missouri and even get pushed out a little bit. Over here in Kansas, we see the South just completely wiping it out, and now they move on to Nebraska and are continuing their campaign across the middle. Out in the West, we see that there's better stuff happening for the North as the two Nevada prongs are able to connect and almost completely knock out the war, as they have lost Carson City as well as Las Vegas. And that thing just about happens, as now they're going to move on to Utah and Arizona. We see some Californian troops going from the tip into Arizona, as well as Idahoan. I don't know what they're called. I'm sorry. I'm just going to call them Idahoan. Idahoan, Oregon, and Washington troops are going to come in from the north. Now, seeing that Wyoming is in a bit of a pickle, they are going to, of course, send a little bit of people to hopefully slow down this southern team, but not too much so that they aren't unable to continue their front line in Utah and Arizona. Over back in the east, we see the Virginian front line bringing great success for the North, as they're able to take out the entire coast as well as a big portion of the country, but they are eventually stopped and a stalemate is brought forth. Over here in Missouri, things aren't looking too good, as more and more Southern troops are pouring in and bursting out and are slowly taking part of the state, and now are deciding to move over to Kentucky. So things aren't looking good for the North. In this situation, I would say the South is so far winning, as their plan is coming to fruition, and it's looking like in the coming months or days, weeks, maybe it might be successful and they can cut the North in two. So, seeing the great success of the South, the west side of the North is going to decide that they have to stop this and are pounding all their troops from Utah straight into Wyoming to cut off the South. So over here in the West, I would say they have pretty powerful states of like California, Washington, and Oregon against like Utah. Utah's pretty good, but there's also like Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. I think they do have the upper hand here, so they are able to easily, I would say, reclaim a big portion of Wyoming back, but not all of it yet. Meanwhile, over here, though, in Nebraska, the state itself is cut into two, and the left side is completely captured, but the right side continues to fight. So the South, though, continues her campaign up and are not stopping at South Dakota, and eventually are probably going to conquer Mount Rushmore. The North, seeing this, are going to decide that their front line in the West over here in Arizona, as well as their front line in Virginia, are their best chances at winning the war, so that's where they're going to focus most of their efforts. Over in Virginia, they're going to do something similarly to what they did in Missouri, but more calculated, in which they're going to pound a bunch of their troops straight in and capture Richmond and are going to push in. But this time, they will fortify their front lines and their supply lines and are going to be able to capture the state. So the North has captured its next state and is going to go ahead and move on into Tennessee as well as North Carolina. Over here, we see Nebraska finally abdicating, as well as South Dakota. So now it's looking like the South might be able to perfectly execute their plan of splitting the North in half. Over here in Wyoming, the North is able to completely push the Southerners out, which is very good news because then they're able to push into Nebraska. And if they're able to capture Nebraska, then that means they can easily capture most, if not all, of the troops in South Dakota. Seeing this, the South is going to hurry quite a few of the troops out of South Dakota, allowing for a small invasion to take place. Over down south in the California Arizona front line, California is able to continue to push on until they meet with a large line of Arizonas who have also been backed up by Texans. Meanwhile, over in Utah, the North continues to push in and is able to capture the entire state. Things are looking good for the North. They're capturing quite a bit of states, and it looks like they might win. But they forgot again about what is happening over in Missouri. So, yep, it's been captured, and now they move on to Iowa. Slowly, they're able to push into Iowa as well as Illinois. They're successfully able to capture the key city of Chicago and are pushing back the Northerners quite a bit. Eventually, these two front lines link up and are pushing quite a bit into Illinois. Meanwhile, over here in Fried Chicken State, uh, the Southerners are pushing from the west as well as from the south. The North goes for quite a risky play here in sending their troops from Tennessee to hopefully to flank the Southerners from behind. They're able to successfully capture quite a bit of them over here, but still most of them remain in Kentucky. The North is going to continue to send troops to this successful front line down here and capture the northern part of North Carolina and are going to continue to move down. They establish a front line that's pretty fortified as they continue their work in Kentucky but are soon halted, resulting in them creating a safety net in Tennessee, sort of, so they don't lose or try not to lose most of their land. Meanwhile, in Iowa, the Southerners continue to go up as states like Michigan and Minnesota are attempting to send their troops to defend. Over in Arizona, we see a rising amount of Texans appearing and are able to successfully push back the Californians to an established front line where a stalemate is going to be held. Over here, though, there's going to be great success in Colorado for the North as they push in from the corner and take quite a bit of the state. Meanwhile, over here in Nebraska, the red team is deciding that this is how they have to win the war and are going to be able to push back the Northerners quite a bit and are going to resume their campaign in South Dakota, once again pushing back the Northerners. So both sides are getting great wins and are suffering great losses, both sides losing states and many troops, as there is no clear winner in sight. So, seeing this, the North is going to see that there's three important front lines they must focus on. There's the one up here, the one over here, and then the one over here in the east. And so this is where they're going to send a majority of their troops. Now, seeing that they are doing that, they are going to lose quite a bit of land in other places, as the South is pushing out of Colorado into Utah as well as into Wyoming. Now, of course, there is great loss from that, but there is also, of course, great gain as they're pushing right back into Arizona, cutting them off from the ocean and are slowly getting to New Mexico. Seeing this, the South doubled downs on their work in the Central America and are knocking out Wyoming and Illinois and South Dakota and push a little bit into North Dakota. Nebraska is also completely captured. Indiana is slowly pushed into, as well as Kentucky quite a bit, and the established North front line over here is slowly falling apart. The North, at the very least, wants to capture the state of North Carolina, so they are going to send their troops in as a charge, cutting them off from the coast, and with a great barrage, they are going to be able to successfully knock out the state. But of course, this is at a cost, as Tennessee is almost liberated from the North. We see over here Utah becoming more and more reclaimed by the red team as they're slowly pushing and eventually might even get to Nevada. Down here in Wyoming, the state is slowly being captured by the South as they also move into North Dakota, where they meet a strong northern front line where they're going to be held out there. Minnesota and Michigan are also going to be slowly attacked, as the troops from Minnesota are also going to be able to encircle those of Michigan. So it's looking like the South has a pretty good chance of that, except for one thing. The North has captured North Carolina, which is pretty close to Atlanta, and as a result, they're going to do their big charge and pound into the state. Seeing this is causing great panic in the South, as they're going to recall a lot of their troops to go and protect the East. This will be able to let the North reclaim, or this will let the North claim states like Arizona, as they soon push into New Mexico, which doesn't have a lot of population, doesn't stand a chance, is eventually captured. So, with the great amount of Southern troops, they are going to be able to push back the Northerners just a little bit, but just a little bit for now. North Dakota is slowly being captured, though, and so it's a contest to see who will be able to execute their plan first. And let's see who the winner is. The winner is the South. They, of course, not of the war, but they're able to cut the North in half, resulting in great states like Minnesota, Wisconsin to fall, and even this little part of Michigan. So now the red team has established its line over here, as the North is going to try to break through this wall of red. In Wyoming, they are able to capture quite a bit of land, as most southern troops are being recalled, and they eventually get through the whole state, and they too once again reclaim Utah. Instead of moving into Colorado, they're going to go after the key state of Texas and are crawling down its south side. This also is very panicking to the south, as now one of their most important states is being attacked. So now they're going to go with their Hail Mary and are going to charge far and deep into the north. Instead of going slowly across Indiana and capturing the whole state, they're going to slowly dart, not slowly, but they're going to dart across into Ohio and also over into Michigan. So from Ohio, they're going to slowly try to make their way to Pennsylvania, and eventually are successful too, as they're moving with great speed. And and right now they're returning to their once again slow and steady tactics of trying to reclaim the state. Over in the north, though, they're going to pull south and cut them off over here and are able to encircle a large amount of troops. But the ones in Pennsylvania are going to be able to hold out and fight. Slowly, Ohio is being recaptured, and the ones in Michigan are also encircled but are holding out. And Ohio is completely blue now. We see Kentucky completely abdicating, as well as Indiana. So the eastern states over here are now quite a bit alone, and the western states are showing great wins over here as they are also able to capture Colorado. Texas is still slowly being invaded as they decided that it's more important to capture the capital, and as a result, Texas does lose quite a bit of land, but the North is completely out of Georgia. The North makes a front line over here in Texas and is also attempting to completely wipe out the Panhandle and then invade Texas from the north. Texas continues to lose important cities and as a result have to recall their troops from Georgia to protect, allowing the North to once again go back in there. They also are going to launch a campaign into South Carolina and are going to be taking quite a bit of land as their troops are also defending Georgia and are able to completely take the state. From South Carolina, they are able to push slightly into Georgia. Over here in Texas, we see the North continue to take win after win in battles as they slowly take this. Over here in the north of the Central, we see the troops here, instead of being called down to the south, continuing their campaign across into Montana as well as into Wyoming. Across the border, they travel together, creating a wide spearhead as they are making a dart towards Idaho, quite an important northern state. Over here in Michigan, we see another northern loss. Troops from the red team in the north are being called south to help defend the state. They are able to take quite a bit of northern land and are able to knock quite a few of them out. The South isn't out of this just yet. From here, they push into Virginia and are hoping to create a large encirclement. And seeing this, North is going to create a huge front line. This, over here in this area, might be viewed as the final battle, as the winner of this will be a very crucial win. Over in Ohio, though, we see the red team being able to successfully be able to push into the country and are taking quite a bit of land. As most of the Ohio troops are in the efforts to take this city, and this results in the country being at a loss. In the west, we see the North going down Texas and are closing in on very important cities and soon Austin. Texas doesn't have much people to help defend, and also their partner, Oklahoma, is being attacked. Oklahoma from the beginning wasn't too powerful of a state, and they are going to be captured. From there, northern troops go into Texas and are able to take quite a bit of land in a sweeping movement. And Texas by now has lost too many troops and cities and are going to have to leave the war. So from here, the red team is seeing that the North is slowly closing in from the west, and so they're going to once again go for a Hail Mary. And from that, they're going to pound into Virginia, a little more calculated from the last time they tried to barge into a state. They're also going to take the southern portion of West Virginia and are slowly going to move up through it, taking its circular part. The North knows that if they reach the coast, then it might be game over for their efforts to reach Georgia, so they're going to send a lot of troops there. This is also going to help the South to push them out of Georgia and a little bit into South Carolina and North Carolina. So both sides are getting major wins and losses in the East, but this is where the war is going to start, and this is also where it's going to end. We see more troops that were fighting in Texas going into Louisiana and also Arkansas. If it can pass through these states, they too can also attack Georgia. The Georgians continue to go through Virginia and West Virginia at great speed with many calculated assaults that land them very important cities and are able to slowly take them out as they move towards Maryland. From here, it looks like this will be anybody's game as both teams are racing to each other's capital and are taking as much land as they can to hopefully secure a win. So from here, the North really doesn't care about Central USA because the more important stuff is over here. So that's where they're going to focus on. And this is allowing the wide spearhead to continue even more and is going to soon reach Idaho. Louisiana falls and soon Arkansas might, but instead of focusing on that, they're going for Mississippi. Over here, we see Virginia being slowly captured, and eventually they do it. They make it to the coast. From there, they push up to capture the whole or most of the state. Not much remains, and from here they go into the south. So the troops in North Carolina and South Carolina are practically trapped. They have one choice, and that's to slowly die trying to defend themselves, or they can make one final attempt at the capital, and they decide to do that. As a result, everybody is pulled out of North Carolina, and this results in the South making great movements in there, thinking that they might have the North, but they might not. So the troops in South Carolina are ready, they're organized, and they know what they got to do, and they're sent in. With lightning speed, they're able to take quite a bit of front lines and are pushing in to the state. They have their minds set on what they need and they're running out of soldiers and eventually are slowed to a stop, but the city is in sight. So they are so close to it. But you know who else sees a city? The South. They're making a play into New York and are slowly marching towards it. This, ladies and gentlemen, will be a photo finish to see who can capture the capital first. And so, just so this video isn't going too long with fighting, I'm just going to say whoever captures the capital first will win. So the North is going to keep on going through Mississippi, as there aren't too many troops there as they are defending the South, so they can hold out just long enough so they can get the win. Instead of conquering the whole state, they go on through Alabama. They're nearing the border of Alabama and Georgia and can almost help the blue team over here. So North Carolina is completely liberated as they move into South Carolina. The troops over here are stuck and the Southerners are coming in from behind, so they are trying their best to make little movements. They make an arcing attack to hopefully surround the city, but it is eventually stopped. Over here, we see the South continuing their march to New York City, as they have the cities in their sights as well, but are eventually halted and are settling for a siege. Both armies are very close, but the North does have reinforcements coming from over here in Alabama. They cut across the border into the South and are able to knock out Florida's panhandle. From here, they move up to hopefully surround the city, as they too see it in their sights. The South makes a calculated move of cutting off New York City and are slowly marching upon it. But in the end, it is North who has an attack from two sides and are easily able to wipe out the southern city of Atlanta. This is a very bloody war, and it might not have even happened the way that I portrayed it, but it might very well happen. Well, I mean, like, it's not gonna happen, but this might be how it happened. I appreciate you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. I had a lot of fun making this, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.